Good afternoon, everybody, and you're listening to 88.1 FM WVYC, the voice of York College. Here on Friday, August 31st at 3 p.m., you're in the studio with me, Keelan Tollinger, for the next full hour. And this is going to be a big test for me because it's the first time I've had a live show in just about ever alone. So bear with me. There's a brand new soundboard in front of me that's going to be very interesting to figure out, but I'll give it my best shot. So, if you've ever heard me on this station before, I guarantee I won't do too much to change with the formula. Basically, I'm just going to be going through some of the past week's news around the world, the United States, the internet, and especially York College's campus. So, plus I might spin some of the favorite tracks of mine in between what the station library has to offer, so that probably means clubbing you over the head with some strange bands you've never heard of. It'll be fun. So what about me? Who am I and what have I become over the summer since I pretty much had my last summer as a free individual before I get unleashed into the workforce as a free adult next spring? Well, I can tell you that I'm still a professional writing major with an advertising minor, and somehow I'm doing no writing courses or business courses, and I'm still trying to graduate as a senior. So I've picked up Broadcast Performance 1 and Audio Production 1 as electives, and hopefully I can put them to good use here with the station. And in that same vein, I'm also serving as the copywriting director for WVYC, which means that the public service announcements that I'll typically read in the middle of the hour, and which you might hear other DJs doing in the middle of their shows, those are mostly going to be written by me. I did a similar thing for a radio station in downtown York over the spring, so I might be able to put my skills to use doing that. Enough about me, there is a lot to get into. So, there's changes happening around YCP, from the freshman count to the establishments here. I'll tell you a little bit about a hobby I indulged in over the summer, plus the craziest sports final I watched during the break, and the passing of a beloved internet celebrity. Trump and the Maverick will also get a mention too. But coming up right now on WVYC, we have a song to get into. Here is probably arguably the best track that I listened to over the summer. It's from a quintet known as Milo Green. And their track, 957, is coming up next on WVYC. Be back soon. Welcome back to the studio here on 88.1 FM WVYC, 1957 by the band Milo Green. It's about 3:08. Let's get into the first topic that I'm going to talk about for the night, and that will be with the fall semester starting. So with it brings both new students to the campus and a feeling of nostalgia in folks that are already here. I guess it's been stronger than ever now that it's my last year. I kind of miss being all wide-eyed and exploring the college for the first time, especially the whole excitement with meeting new people. I went to the dining hall on the first day, and it just felt sort of wonderful to see all these identical green shirts of the orientation leaders and all the new students sum at the tables together, and they're all on a schedule between introduction programs so that at some point, when I turn around, the whole hall is empty and they all move as a unit. And it feels kind of strange that, I'm the oldest class there is, obviously, and with more experience than everyone else I see, there's still faces that I've never seen before, and it's just a big mystery, just where they came from and when they're going to leave. But anyway, there is a lot of new blood. I think the York College magazine said that the president counts about 1,100 new students that are now part of the schools. That's a pretty significant number. And it's good progress since they were falling short of their enrollment goals when I was a new student. They had about 900 in the fall of 2015. And headcount in a private college is important, especially for one that wants to expand its campus in the next 15 to 20 years. But there's a few things that changed just over the summer, or well announced, because in the spring, a Starbucks restaurant will be on main campus inside the second floor of the Humanities Building. As I'm not a coffee drinker, I don't really care, but plenty of people are excited for it. Not quite over the fact that the current cafe that's there, a place that sells breakfast, paninis, and wraps, that's currently closed. So now the place where you're going to get breakfast is in Spartsden. It's open early in the Student Union building. And I think their selection shrank down a little bit because they're trying to cram a sub shop, a Mexican bar, and an Italian to-go store all in one place. But yes, soon the college is going to stop offering their own overpriced breakfast and start offering Starbucks expensive food instead. There has to be a split in the profits somewhere, but I'm not sure. Now the change that I really care for, and I'm not sure what to feel for the many people who are disadvantaged by it, is that YCP is going to become a smoke-free campus. For the past years, you've had to stand at least 25 feet away from a building to smoke, vaping with electronic cigarettes virtually everywhere, but they're going to disallow all of that. It's crazy. I have no idea how they're going to enforce it. Right now, they're in this transition phase where smoking is only allowed in the three places between this main campus and West Campus. So there's a small wooden gazebo they built between the freshman dorms of Penn and Beard Hall. And there's now a space across the creek behind the tennis courts, and there's also a small section way over on West in the corner where all the apartments are alongside Colonial Avenue. I don't see many smokers on campus to begin with. I definitely see a lot of vaping, so there's really no way to tell how people with either of these habits are going to cope pretty much. And maybe I won't have to go smelling this like sweet, vanilla, fruity scent hanging in the air whenever I'm walking around from all the electronic smokers, so I guess that's the only benefit I'm going to get out of this. So what other minor things are there? I'll go back to the dining hall for a second. They apparently got rid of the plastic straws the first day I was there. That is placard of a sea turtle saying like by cutting the use of plastic straws we're saving wildlife. But that honestly sucks for somebody like me with sensitive teeth. So whenever I take a drink with my lips to the glass, I'm gonna hurt myself. And just like and the ice cubes are like these small wood chip fragments. I care more about the students who might have trouble without a straw, because I remember my sister, she's very environmentally conscious, but she said all the restaurants that are out there in California banning straws, there's people that are going to need them. So maybe this reduction is only a temporary thing, or they're going to be doing the new paper straw, so we'll have to see. It's part of the whole debate in reducing waste. And lastly, I had a campus safety officer ride past me on a Segway. Just cruising past, upright on two wheels, a speedy 10 miles per hour or so. He wore a helmet and went around the top of the parking garage checking the permits on every car. I think that's smarter than two guys riding around in a pickup truck who do the whole vehicle checking. I guess that cuts down on gas. But it certainly doesn't score well with style points to have guys in their 50s looking like they're tourists instead of security guards. I swear, if I ever see a Segway light up and start playing a siren and they go after a student, I'll let you guys know. So yeah, I will be back soon here on 88.1 FM WVYC. Here is Beach House with their song Dive, and I'll be right back. Welcome back to 88.1 FM WVYC, the voice of York College. You're with me in the studio, Keelan Tollinger, and let's get to that big final I was talking about. So, when I finish up here in the station and go to bed this Friday evening, I'm going to be waking up bright and early instead of sleeping in. And that's because I have to get up for Liverpool soccer. I'm talking about the English Premier League, which means their Saturday afternoon games are often in the morning for American audiences. This upcoming one at 7:30 a.m. But it's worth it. They're a fun team to watch, full of energy, really one of the up-and-coming teams of this era. But they weren't always that way. This summer they had a chance to win the European Champions League. Think of it sort of like a yearly Olympics for the very best of the teams on the eastern side of the Atlantic. Now, Liverpool had won 5 of these things before, but their last one was in the mid-2000s or so. They hadn't really come close until just last year when a bunch of factors led to a very impressive championship run. May 26th in Kiev, Ukraine, in a packed stadium under nighttime lights, this team was taking the field against a Spanish team named Real Madrid. It wasn't going to be easy, although Liverpool walked through the quarterfinals and the semifinals with ease. Madrid was trying to win their 3rd straight Champions League title, their 13th overall, their 4th in the last decade. So this Liverpool coach, a German manager by the name of Jurgen Klopp, took over Liverpool in the fall of 2015, around when I first started watching this team closely. It's taken a bit for him to settle in, but now it's his team. The squad is all trained to do this high-intensity style where if they don't have the ball, they just swarm and annoy the opponent like they want to go straight towards the goal afterwards, like a fast break in basketball. It's mostly worked. Mostly. There's one problem that Jurgen Klopp has had. He cannot win tournament finals. He led his previous German team to a 2nd place finish in the Champions League in 2013. Then with Liverpool, he did the same in 2 other smaller tournament finals in 2015, the Football League Cup in England and the Europa League throughout Europe. So this final couldn't matter more to break Klopp's curse, if you want to call it that, and he was trying to do it by going full renegade against this big Spanish side, a true David versus Goliath test. To put some of the players in perspective, Madrid had Cristiano Ronaldo, who's basically one of the most undisputed best players in the sport right now, huge salary, plenty of most valuable player awards in the multiple leagues he's played in sort of the later stages of his career, but several weeks before the match he scored on a team by jumping in the air and hitting the ball over his head. Straight into the net. So while Madrid had their freak of nature, other eyes were all on Mohamed Salah for Liverpool, the king of Egypt, as he's known. Salah is basically the Tom Brady of an entire country. Plenty of the Middle East watches soccer as their main entertainment, but Egypt did not have a very significant player to come up from their nation up until last year. Liverpool just bought Salah in the summer of 2017 from an Italian team, and he was just supposed to be kind of a little boost. Average price, knew how to score sometimes, and he was just sort of there. Another English team used to have him several years ago when he was a younger player and tried to develop his talents, but then they let him go. But I don't think anyone anticipated how much this guy could run. And it fit perfectly with Liverpool's style. Just give him the ball at his feet, and he just accelerates past people. And better yet, he got a lot better at shooting. So much that, at the end of the Premier League season in May, he had broken the single-season goal-scoring record in the entire league's history. 32 goals in 36 games. 43 goals if you want to count what he scored in tournament games outside of England. Scoring about a goal a game in a sport where sometimes the games end 1-0 is just mind-boggling. And halfway through the season, people were taking notice and listing Salah for awards, and by the time the Champions League final rolled around in May, he was in the conversation for one of the best current players in the world. So, to add to his magic, he played in the Egyptian national team games in hopes to qualify his country for the 2018 World Cup in the summer. And in the last minutes of their final match to qualify, Salah had just one penalty kick to put his country ahead and appear in the tournament in Russia, and he scored it. Egypt was going to their first World Cup since 1990 on the back of one man elevated to the status of a hero. So, game on. Much as I hate to admit it, sometimes even the biggest matches in the sport can be a little uneventful. For about half an hour of the 90-minute game, there wasn't much going on. Salah was trying to race a Madrid player by the name of Sergio Ramos to a free ball. They pushed each other a bit, and you can do that with your shoulders to just slightly in moderation to get people off balance, but Salah pulled down on Ramos's arm. They fell, and basically Salah's lower arm was stuck against Ramos's upper arm. It looked like a wrestling move the way they went down. And then Ramos rolled over Salah, and instantly, you could tell there was something probably torn in the Egyptian's shoulder. Outran the doctors because the game had to be stopped. Salah was sitting up and getting his shoulder massaged. It didn't seem dislocated at first. He got up and went to the sideline and came back on. Crisis averted, scare soon to be over. A few minutes later, after the ball went out of play, Salah just sank to the ground and wept. Just waited for the doctors to run over to him again and help him off. It was obviously just too much pain. He couldn't swing his arms freely to run. They had to substitute him off, and that placed the biggest question mark over the rest of the game. Now, it was still scoreless, but it definitely seemed to be like Liverpool was already down. The second half began what would be the worst 45 minutes of one player's entire life. His name, Loris Karius, Liverpool's goalkeeper. This story begins a few years back when Jurgen Klopp bought this young, apparently talented goalie for a few million. It was pocket change. He was going to be developed into a decent player if all went well. But to go back to a morning on December 4th, 2016, things with Karius get difficult quick. Liverpool was playing a match against an average English team named Bournemouth. They, Liverpool, had a 2-0 lead at halftime, but the game ended 3-4 in favor of Bournemouth. After Karius let in 2 goals within 2 minutes of each other at one point, then another, and finally a dagger to lose the game in the last 3 minutes of the match. One factor that critics guessed was the problem was that Karius was likely having trouble focusing. Since it was an away game, there was a hostile crowd at his back and likely throwing insults at him the instant they knew he was young and a little experienced. And he just did not save enough to spare Liverpool the embarrassment of giving up a sure lead. And for a while, Karius wasn't the first choice in goalkeeper, but he re-established his position for the 2017-2018 season. Jurgen Klopp put faith in Karius again, and through the Premier League and the Champions League run, he held steady to plug any holes in some of the best teams in the world. And it worked until the 51st minute. So Karius caught a ball that was kicked into his box. So his next move is to turn and roll it underhanded to the closest Liverpool player to him. He didn't see out of the corner of his eye, or even sense that a Madrid player was standing right beside him, and he stuck out his foot as soon as the ball left Karius' hand. It went 15 yards backwards and into the side of the net. In soccer, you call that a howler of a mistake, because you just hate to see that. And though Liverpool quickly tied the game after that, it was not over. 10 minutes after the score went equal, a Madrid player named Gareth Bale leapt up into the air and kicked it backwards over his head. Yeah, same thing Ronaldo did just the other week when that was already a historic goal. And this other guy does it in a championship final and scores it. Karius had no chance. He didn't even move to block it. He was just so unprepared. It was something spectacular never seen before, but definitely not Liverpool's day. And as the clock ticked down with 10 minutes left and hope was waning thin, Gareth Bale got the ball again in Liverpool's half. He was maybe standing about 40 yards away, almost half the length of an American football field. He looked up, just kind of checked out where Karius was standing, and fired a shot as hard as he could. Karius stood in front of it, held out his hands to catch it, and he just dropped it. He put his hands right out in front of him and had the ball hit square between his palms, and it somehow bounced up over his shoulder and wandered into the goal. It's the equivalent to asking your friend to throw your keys over to you from several feet away, and you drop them down a storm drain, never to be seen again. That was it. Barely any other action, it just ended 1-3 from there. And I think it's going to be one of the craziest, but also the most nightmarish finals in soccer history. Many people assumed that Karius would never play in a Liverpool jersey again, as after the final whistle, he walked over to the side of the stadium with all the fans and held up his gloves to them in apology, red in the face. And you know that the team is more than just two specific players and a coach, so there's more influence than that. But Salah and Karius' roles definitely decide a lot about that game. I'll give a quick aftermath since I've been describing this for quite a while, but days later, Karius apparently was evaluated by doctors and found that he had a concussion. It's suspected he got it during the final when, during a whole jumble to try to get a ball flying in Liverpool's goal, the camera showed he was hit in the head by a stray elbow. Who it belonged to? Sergio Ramos, the same guy who got tied up with Salah just minutes before that next incident. Salah at least returned to full health and is back to playing for Liverpool. Karius, on the other hand, was first replaced by a Brazilian goalkeeper bought over the summer. And now, Karius is going to a team in the country of Turkey just to loan him out to a group that can use his talents and hopefully restore his confidence back. It's also lesser stakes to be at a smaller team, I guess. Right now, things look kind of promising for Liverpool. Won't jinx it too much, I hope, by saying that they're 3-0 on the season, they have no goals scored against them, and Salah is getting back to work with 2 goals. Their chances are favored to win this year's Premier League, and they'll be back to running in the Champions League again. So that was, in essence, the most monumental sports final I've seen in a long time. And though I try to stay objective even as a Liverpool fan, I cannot describe in full just how much Karius frustrated me that day. Obviously, yes, we all make mistakes when we don't see a car pulling out in front of us or something, or we drop a fragile object and it breaks. But I still don't really want to see it in a Liverpool shirt again, at least not on a big stage where the pressure's on. Regardless of all the storylines, the coincidences, and the mysteries surrounding that game, it's still made for wonderful entertainment, and hopefully there's more in store as Liverpool begins their 2018 season. Perhaps I'll keep updating on the show as the months go on, probably never this in-depth. So, yeah, about the middle of the hour, about 3:28, I'm going to get the PSA of the hour out of the way, so 3:30 here at your College of Pennsylvania, and while the summer itself is virtually over, there's still some time to enjoy some beach vibes. So, here's Adult Diversion from the band Always, here on 88.1 FM WVYC. Welcome back to 88.1 FM WVYC, the voice of York College. You just heard Adult Diversion by Always. And let's go into the hobby that I was talking about in the intro. So I got to do some kite flying while vacationing with my family in the Outer Banks of North Carolina. But not just any kites, I suppose I could say. The little diamond ones that an 8-year-old might put up with SpongeBob on it with the help of his dad, not quite what I'm talking about. Stunt kites or sport kites are a level above that. And they're the ones that are designed to be moved and never stay still. I think years and years ago it might have been on a beach in New Jersey that I saw someone flying this crescent-shaped one doing all these sorts of loops, and I want to see how that was like. The Prism stunt kites that I bought, I think I purchased my first about 4 or 5 years ago. They're sort of shaped like rounded triangles, almost like a wide paper airplane. It has these bends, kind of like troughs for the wind. Instead of one line attached to the bottom, there's 2 lines and a pair of bridles. So you unravel out a 50, 75-foot thread side by side, lay them out flat on the ground facing the wind, then you take a handle in each hand and pull back. That's basically the anatomy of a stunt kite. and it's those two lines that let you steer left and right depending on which hand you pull back. These things are light, like with the weight of the nylon material and the flexible spokes, a lot of them are under a pound. The one that I bought, the Nexus 4D from Prism, is sort of like tissue paper that's as strong as steel, kind of. And it's so sensitive to the wind that instead of using your wrist to pull it like normal stunt kites, you just hook the tips of your index fingers through the loops that they give you and move them back and forth just a few inches or so. It turns on a dime, like 90-degree angles, but it also doesn't need much of a breeze at all to stay airborne. Keeping yourself and the kite away from people still applies. The first night I brought out the new one. There was a family of about 20-25 people out on the shore in the early evening taking photos with a professional photographer, and since they were next door neighbors, I had to go a few houses down the beach just to be out of their way. And people that walk up and down the beach can be a bit of a hazard too, because often you have to back up into the water to keep the kite line straight and into the wind. So you get folks either trying to sneak underneath the strings or they'll wade in behind you and they're always twisting their necks at funny angles to try and see what's up there as they pass. I had a guy even offer to help get the kite back up when it crashed at one point, so I didn't have to go running over to pick it up and get it right side up again. Definitely keep an eye out for stunt kite flyers on your next vacation, and see if they're more skilled than me, because I can reliably do the figure eights for a little bit before I crash into the ground. And there's corkscrews from like left to right across the sky to practice, as well as dives. I'll try to do those in the future. Just, if you ever get a stunt kite for yourself, never ever rush getting the lines like wrapped up when you're finished. Keep the left and the right lines separate and go just a little bit at a time. My family texted me for dinner when I was trying to get my new kite back in, and for 15 minutes I just sort of stood there in one place when I first realized that things were getting tied up. I flew my old one apart without a second pair of hands at one point, and to like not keep the kite from twisting too much, there was nobody else to help, and I ended up with like a bundle of string, a literal nest that it took 2 hours at home to untangle between me and my father. So that's all I really wanted to inform about stunt kites, I guess. It's about 3:38 here on WVYC. We still have the passing of John McCain to cover, a hero in every respect, and someone else who's a bit of a villain that the television world recently lost. We'll get to that after the song Russell by the band Leon, here on 88.1 FM WVYC. Be right back. Welcome back to 88.1 FM WVYC. You just heard Russell from the band Leon. And you're in the studio with me, Keelan Tollinger, for just about another 20 minutes or so. I'm going to jump into the next topic of the afternoon. So, typically, when I did my show several months ago, a common thing was me and my co-host tried to talk about President Trump's Week in Review. Now, while there is plenty to talk about regarding what has happened with his presidency during the summer, and although there are plenty of thoughts I can impart about the way he's running the country, as objectively and essentially as I can be, I think there's another politician who deserves to get the most mention this week. We can talk about Trump another time. Though he was a candidate that never got to the highest seat in office, John McCain's mark in American history is quite monumental. You know by now that he passed away from glioblastoma on the 25th. I can only really speculate what 5th and 6th grade me thought about McCain's platform when he was running and lost to Barack Obama. But a part of me didn't mind who won either way, as I thought they both had something to bring to America's table. There are some question marks I suppose you could pose regarding, was the nation ready for a female vice president in Sarah Palin? What if McCain served 2 terms instead, and what would have become of his health? Especially since it wouldn't be 2 years from the end of his service that he would be diagnosed with his aggressive cancer. Should consecutive Senate terms even be limited by a certain number of years? Should his time to stop serving and wind down in the twilight hours of his life have come sooner? And what if his survival as a prisoner of war never happened, and the American people never got to be acquainted with a figure like him? I want to read parts of McCain's statement to the American people that he intended to be read after his passing. There are just a few of the paragraphs that spoke to me about his character and the identity of the rest of the citizens, us, who he served. Quote, "Fellow Americans, that association has meant more to me than any other. I lived and died a proud American. We are citizens of the world's greatest republic, a nation of ideals, not blood and soil. We are blessed and are a blessing to humanity when we uphold and advance those ideals at home and in the world. We have helped liberate more people from tyranny and poverty than ever before in history. We have acquired great wealth and power in the process. Skipping along, we are 325 million opinionated, vociferous individuals. We argue and we compete and sometimes even vilify each other in our raucous public debates. If only we remember and give each other the benefit of the presumption that we all love our country, we will get through these challenging times. We will come through them stronger than before. We always do. And his closing. Do not despair of our present difficulties, but believe always in the promise and greatness of America, because nothing is inevitable here. Americans never quit. We never surrender. We never hide from history. Farewell, fellow Americans. God bless you, and God bless America. All of that, including the parts that I didn't read, are just historic sounding. It should be in a textbook 100 years from now. And they're written like they're from a person aware of their mortality, but still fearless of both his life and the future of the country he gave his life so passionately for. And they're written, just like it's a different tone than someone who might lead a country in fear of poverty, loss, the unknown, and the outside. John McCain was just basically a model American. So it's about 3:43. I'm gonna take a little bit of a turn to get the weather check over with. So, where was I? Alright, so let's switch gears now to what's hopefully a story equally as bright. There was another significant passing at the tail end of summer, at least as far as the internet is concerned. If you tuned into my shows last year, you might remember a celebrity who fell ill named Stephen Carl Stephenson, the actor who played the goofy villain in a live-action family show called Lazy Town. It first aired in 2004. The whole premise is to get kids off the couch and moving, but Stephen played a grumpy, fun-hating hermit named Robbie Rotten. Think of a really lanky man in purple pinstripes with this really fake, slick black hair like Elvis, living underground and spying on the sporty protagonists with a submarine periscope. And Robbie Rotten was, in essence, the bad guy. Like, he'd be the one who'd pop the balls of the characters that the characters are playing with, or he'd try to make it rain for days on end, or create a new arcade game and shepherd the kids indoors forever, brainwash them. He's basically the most over-the-top, silliest antagonist you can imagine. But the way he'd express himself so flamboyantly, how bad his luck was, his plans getting foiled and he stomps off to pout, you can't really hate the guy. And Stephen Carr was diagnosed with gallbladder cancer in September 2016, and immediately some pretty magical things happened at once to show Stephen some support. His co-actors started a GoFundMe campaign to support Stephen's medical bills and his family funds. At the same time, a few music remixers picked up a song from Lazy Town's soundtrack called We Are Number One, a 3-minute musical about him trying to teach 3 clones basically how to be evil. I'll play the intro in a sec just to get an idea of the sound. It's just sort of silly sound. It's something that kids can basically follow along with. So yeah, give it a listen.
Are you a real villain?
Well, technically, nah.
Have you ever caught a good guy like a real superhero?
Nah.
Have you ever tried a disguise?
Nah.
All right. I can see that I will have to teach you how to be villains.
The song was decently catchy. Basically, some older teens and young adults thought that this lethargic mascot was both the funniest thing and an effort to contribute towards. The song was redone by people countless times with a bunch of different instruments. Some would rephrase the lyrics to a Shakespearean dialect. Some would translate it to Japanese and any sort of number of languages. Some would take the key phrase, "We are number one," and replace it with something like Donald Trump saying during a speech, "are going to build a wall" every time, just to mock the ridiculousness of it. But to turn a song into an internet-wide inside joke, a meme, had to go somewhere. The attention and the awareness to this actor and his sickness. So in 1 month, $75,000 were donated, and by the end of the campaign, over $160,000 were raised for Stephen and his family. It got the attention of Robbie Rotten himself and in December 2016, he gathered the 3 other actors who did the song with him and the composer and filmed a 15-minute event where they were all interviewed, sharing their memories of the song, and ended with a live rendition of We Are Number One. As of today, that video has 6.5 million views. Best part of it all, August 2017, an Icelandic news site, Iceland is where Stefan is from, published an article that he was cancer-free. The internet exploded. So people were so ecstatic that their remixing and their editing and their encouragement had saved a man's life. And for a while, things had sort of died down, but unfortunately, the cancer came back and it spread to his liver. The news broke in the March of 2018 that it was terminal, and chemotherapy could only prolong his life. And so everything quieted down, and just last week, Stefan Karl started to detach himself from social media. I mean, he had a YouTube channel where he basically, the last year of his life, he would start visiting the very north of Iceland, and he went to Spain and watched a matador show with the bulls and the red curtains, stuff like that. So I mean, he was trying to live his life to his fullest, and he was sharing some parts of all the good times that he was having outside of hospital visits. But yeah, everything quieted down, and after he spent some time with his family, just last week on the 21st of August, he passed at the age of 43. What I think the most remarkable thing of the legacy of Robbie Rotten is just how much it united people. Of all the different corners of the web, YouTube, Facebook, sites like Reddit and Tumblr, people sort of codified and internalized his fictional villain's language and mannerisms, and made a lousy character just as lovable and memorable as, say, Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh. It's basically a song that has transcended media and age groups. This show was meant for kids. Even an infant that watched the first episode would be only 14. They wouldn't really understand or know how to best pay tribute to an actor like Stefan, I would think. So it was the older folks who had to find it, spend hours editing the song and the video on their computers, made enough noise so even the actor, who might not have completely understood how much he meant to meme culture and was unaware of his status as a hero, I think it made him understand and find fulfillment that people were still being entertained by his work. He wrote in a tweet in March this year, "Time is the most valuable thing in life because it never comes back. And whether you spend it in the arms of a loved one or alone in a prison cell, life is what you make it. Dream big." And I also like how he ended his live performance back in 2016 when he was first starting to fight the disease. I'll play it really quick for you all.
And special thank you to all of you, my dear meme friends, who have been donating to our family fund at GoFundMe. Thank you so much. It really touches my heart. Thank you so much. And goodbye, everybody, and keep memeing!
So yeah, I mean, he was a very happy-go-lucky sort of guy. I mean, I really like the work that he did, just trying to educate kids about getting up and being active. So hopefully that gets those of you unacquainted with Robbie Rotten a good idea of how a villain can turn into a superhero. Let's get one more song into the hour. Here is Broken Toy by Veronica Falls, here on 88.1 FM WVYC. Welcome back to 88.1 FM WVYC. It's the voice of York College. I'm Keelan Tollinger, and that just about does it for all the material that I have. I think my hour is just about up. I really want to jump in quick and say that there is one more change that I found on campus. I can see it right outside the window in this studio. They had this bulletin board out in front of the Student Union building. I mean, if you're walking to the dining hall, you probably see it with all the events. They have changed that to an electronic board, and there's actually streaming like a TV channel that you can actually get if you tune it to maybe channel 3 on your television sets here on campus. So yeah, that probably has all the new activities and events going on, as well as a weather check. It's probably a lot more accurate than the one that I just gave about 10 minutes ago. Cause yeah, now I can tell it's pouring. Hopefully it stops pretty soon. From what the radar looked like, it's relatively spotty and might shift pretty soon. So that just about does it for me in the studio for this week. Next Friday, I can guarantee you a nice Trump checkup like old times, as well as a lesson that I learned about shortwave radio in the modern day. Till then, thanks for joining me this afternoon on WVYC and hope to catch you next time. So, to finish off the hour, here is Johnny Marr with Walk Into the Sea here on 88.1 FM WVYC. Have a good one.